Here we go. Let's dive into Last Call at the Oasis 2011. The film opens with experts and personal voices establishing water as the most vital resource for life, underscoring its irreplaceable value. A Midwestern woman recalls her father's warning that water would someday become more precious than oil, a prophecy she believes is now coming true. This introduction sets the tone for the urgent exploration of the global water crisis that is already unfolding in our lifetimes. The documentary shifts to Las Vegas, spotlighting its spectacular growth and reliance on nearby Lake Mead, the largest reservoir in the country. Despite appearances of waste with its iconic fountains, the film explains that the entire strip uses only a small fraction of the region's water, yet it remains a symbol of unsustainable development. Experts warn that water levels at Lake Mead are dropping rapidly, putting the city and the Hoover Dam's electricity generation at risk. The segment highlights the looming threat to millions and the desperation fueling plans for a massive, costly pipeline to tap one of Nevada's last oases. As the narrative moves to California's Central Valley, viewers learn that less than 1% of Earth's water is available as drinkable freshwater. The filmmakers emphasize that even regions considered unlikely to face water shortages, like California, are now at risk of running dry. The Central Valley, vital for U.S. agriculture, is stretched to its limits, with millions of irrigated acres dependent on an increasingly precarious water supply. This sequence lays the groundwork for understanding the interconnectedness and fragility of water systems, supporting food production. The film introduces cutting-edge science with satellite data showing alarming groundwater depletion in the Central Valley. Through the GRACE satellite, hydrologists reveal that the aquifer has lost a volume of water equivalent to 1.5 times Lake Mead, all within a little over a decade. The experts warn that at current pumping rates, the aquifer could be depleted in as little as 60 years. This passage underscores the unsustainable nature of current water usage and the looming danger of running out of groundwater. The documentary draws a stark parallel between California and Australia, which has endured nearly a decade of severe drought. Australian farmers recount the devastating impacts on agriculture and mental health, with some driven to despair and suicide. The segment reveals how water scarcity forces communities to radically rethink traditional farming and cope with loss, while also touching on the debate over whether climate change is to blame. This global comparison drives home the universal nature of the freshwater crisis. Attention turns to water quality with a historical look at pollution in the U.S. The infamous burning of the Cuyahoga River in 1969 serves as a catalyst for the creation of the EPA and landmark legislation like the Clean Water Act. However, the film argues that while visible pollution has decreased, invisible contaminants, such as pharmaceuticals and industrial chemicals, are on the rise and often go unregulated. This segment emphasizes that new threats to water quality are subtler, more pervasive, and harder to detect or control. The narrative introduces UC Berkeley scientist Tyrone Hayes and his research on the herbicide atrazine. Hayes shares his lifelong fascination with amphibians and describes how his groundbreaking studies uncovered that low-level atrazine exposure can disrupt hormones in frogs, even causing genetic males to develop as females. This finding raises alarms about the potential for similar endocrine disrupting effects in humans and highlights the broader risks of agricultural chemicals contaminating water supplies. Hayes' story illustrates the intersection of science, health, and regulatory challenges. The film delves into the environmental and health impacts of concentrated animal feeding operations (CFOs). Through the eyes of Michigan activist Lynn Henning, viewers witness how industrial-scale dairy farms generate enormous amounts of manure, stored in lagoons and spread on fields, leading to widespread water contamination. Henning's grassroots monitoring exposes the dangerous levels of E. coli and other pollutants entering waterways, demonstrating the lack of oversight and the personal toll on those fighting for clean water. This scene underscores the complexity of agricultural pollution and community activism. In a darkly comic yet insightful sequence, psychologist Paul Rosen demonstrates that the yuck factor that hampers public acceptance of water reuse. Using a cockroach in water experiment, he shows how irrational disgust shapes perceptions, even when the water is scientifically safe. The segment extends this insight to the challenge of convincing people to embrace purified recycled water as a solution to shortages. Rosen, alongside water experts, argues that overcoming psychological barriers is as crucial as technological advances in addressing the water crisis. As the film draws to a close, experts reflect on the daunting scale of the problem and the need for immediate action. They acknowledge that while reversing climate change is unlikely, humanity can still take meaningful steps to ensure a sustainable water supply if we act now. The documentary leaves viewers with a sense of hope tempered by urgency, emphasizing that the water crisis is manageable but demands collective awareness and systemic change. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. See you in the next one.